Okay, guys, I want to have a couple of videos dealing with the situation in California, public sector collective bargaining in California. Most of you, or many of you, will work for local governments in California, and quite a number of you, I notice, are working for the CSU system. This is a sort of a new phenomenon for me. I haven't come across many people that are actually covered by HERA before. So a couple of general comments in this video, and then in the second one, I look at the details of some of the issues, but some overall impressions of collective bargaining in California. First, it's a little unusual. It's not national union bargaining versus large-scale management bargaining. It's large-scale management versus mom-and-pop operations, mom-and-pop unions, independent local unions or associations that typically deal with the local sheriff's department, the local fire department, the local city council, or the county. And these are, in many cases, not affiliated with the big national unions. This has a couple of advantages from the point of view of the management. It means that they're dealing with a union that doesn't have a tremendous amount of resources to sustain an action, a strike action. And it has disadvantages from the union's point of view in that respect, that it doesn't have the ability to have a strike because it's not affiliated. So it's a wash for both sides there. The advantage from the union's point of view, from the union members' point of view, at least this is how they perceive it, is that the association is theirs. It's local and it's controlled by them, and it's not beholden to some international in D.C. or in New York. The downside of that is that they tend to be somewhat the level of staffing is somewhat lower. The skill level of staffing is somewhat lower. Their access to technical experts in terms of collective bargaining tends to be somewhat less. Now, the larger picture that emerges from this is that these local independent unions tend to be very, very business union focused. They're there to deal with the issues of wages and benefits, and they tend not to be too concerned with the larger social issues. And in that sense, there's very little objection to them really, except in the current situation where the public safety unions eat up so much of the budget that people are beginning to object to them. The bigger international unions and even the big independents, something like the CTA, have ambitions way beyond representing members in contract negotiations or just in wages. The bigger unions are concerned with national policy on specific issues of interest to them and to their members. And this, of course, tends to be fairly controversial. But what I'd like you to get, the first part out of this, is that the landscape in California is somewhat different than one would imagine. Lots of independent locals negotiating directly with the city or with the sheriff's department, or with the police department, or whatever it happens to be. And the genesis of those these are associations that grew out of the Fraternal Order of the Police, or the International Association of Firefighters, or the teachers' organizations, and so forth. So the first thing. The second thing is that there's no overarching legislation in California dealing with collective bargaining. What you have is a variety of pieces of legislation covering specific employees. And even within that, there's some tremendous variation. The main pieces of legislation are ERA, E-E-R-A, the Educational Employee Relations Act, which covers K-12, actually K-14 education up through the community college. The second piece is the Myers-Milius-Brown Act, which is the pocket guidance, which is what I asked you to take a look at. The third piece of legislation is HERA, H-E-E-R-A. That's Higher Education and Employees Relations Act. That covers the University of California and the California State University System. And the fourth major piece of legislation is SERA. That's State Employee Relations Act. In other words, the State Civil Service. So there's different pieces of legislation covering different groups of employees. Now, ERA, HERA, and SERA are statewide pieces of legislation that deal with specific occupational categories, and they're very, very specific and very functionally specific. Myers-Milius-Brown is the outlier in this. Myers-Milius-Brown is a statute that was passed that enabled local governments to figure out ways to negotiate or to meet and confer with their local employees, or local government employees. It's a very different piece of legislation than ERA, HERA, or CERA. Now, the major players in California, in California public sector labor relations, are on the management side at the local government level. You've got the League of California Cities, which is a lobbying organization for city management. And it's very, very active in promoting legislation that expands the power of city management in order to do things. It negotiates directly with the governor, with the governor's office, and so forth. So that's at the city level. At the supervisor level, you've got the County Supervisors Association, which negotiates, does somewhat similar stuff, but in a lot less obvious fashion and not anywhere as important as the League of California Cities. And at the education level, on the management side, you've got the Education Supervisors Association, which lobbies in favor of or in opposition to legislation dealing with K-14 education in the state. On the other side of the table, so to speak, you have the unions, or employee associations, as they generally tend to be called in California. The most important of these, the largest one, will be the California Teachers Association, the CTA, which is a major player in state politics. And it's not affiliated with the larger labor movement. It's not affiliated with the labor federations, but it's an independent union, and it has got its locals, like the San Bernardino Teachers Association, the Riverside Teachers Association, and so forth, are components of that. There is another a national education union that is affiliated with the AFL, the Labor Federation, called the NEA, but it has very, very few members in California, some around San Francisco. It's primarily an East Coast and Midwest organization. As a matter of fact, one of the pieces in the first chapter is written by the current president, Randy Weingarten. So that's the teachers' end of things. At the local government level, what you have, the emerging powerful union, is called SEIU, the Service Employees International Union. This is a union that operates in the public and the private sector, and it's got branches in Southern California, in San Bernardino and Riverside County. Indeed, the faculty union within the California State University system, it's called the CFA, the California Faculty Association, is actually a component of the SEIU. Now, the SEIU is one of these unions that is not just concerned with wages, hours, and terms and conditions. The SEIU is concerned with social change, and at the moment, it's heavily dominated by Latinas and very, very much involved in the social and political struggle to improve working conditions for Hispanic males and particularly for Hispanic females. Those are the two big unions. Then there are a variety of local associations, hundreds and hundreds of local associations. Most important ones here will be, of course, San Marino Public Employees Association and the Riverside Public Employees Association. Then you have the Sheriff's Association, the Sheriff's Employees Association in San Bernardino County, and the RSA, the Riverside Sheriff's Association. And within the county, there will be the Rialto, there will be the Fontana, there will be the Ontario Police Association, and so on. One of the features of collective bargaining in California is that police officers are entitled to a bargaining unit that's comprised only of sworn police officers. Sometimes this causes a little bit of problem, who's in and who's out. I remember being involved in an arbitration case one time where child welfare protective officers, otherwise known as kiddie cops, are they police officers or are they not? I mean, that was one of the issues that we had to debate. Under the mechanisms then to resolve disputes between management, the employers, the city government, or the school district, or whatever it happens to be, and the unions, is called PERB, P-E-R-B, Public Employee Relations Bureau, and this is this publication is heavily funded by PERB, and it provides mediation and conciliation and arbitration services to local governments in order to try and resolve disputes. However, once again, it's a little complicated because the entities covered under MMB tend to want to be independent, and they have their own arbitration and mediation services. Well, they used to have their own arbitration